So that's more intimate to me. And I look into what God has done in China. Actually, you can see it is the result of the travailing prayer of two sisters. Miss Margaret E. Barber, she came to China, to Fuqiao, as a missionary from the Anglican Church. She was sent to Fuqiao to teach in a school. And he knew the Lord. She loved the Lord. So while she was teaching in that school, she led a number of students. And because of that, she aroused the jealousy of his fellow teachers. So they accused her of some big sins. And the committee, without telling her what he was accused of, told her that she should return to England. And when she asked for the reason and who was accusing her, they refused to tell her. And of course she was greatly disturbed. She prayed to the Lord. She felt it was an injustice. At least she should know who was accusing her or what he was accused of. But they refused to do that. While he was praying, the Lord told her. He said, I'm the head. You are a member of the body of Christ. And the one who accused you is also a member of the body of Christ. Whichever member suffer, I suffer. So why don't you just be quiet? And she submitted to the Lord. So she returned to England. Now eventually, she was justified. And after she returned to England, she met with an independent group. That independent group was led by D.M. Penton. I suppose some of you know, have read the writings of D.M. Penton. He was one greatly used by the Lord, especially in prophecy. So while she was there, she felt the Lord wanted her to come back to China. But there was no mission behind her. So she wondered whether she should come back to China. And finally, she was told, if the Lord sent you there, then you go. So you returned. And because of the other missionary ostracized her, so she went to a village outside of Fuqiao. And she came with her niece. So two of them stayed in the village and they tried to evangelize the village people. But as they were doing that, she felt in her heart that if God should do something in China, there should be some intellectual people being caught by God, and that will influence China. So they began to pray that the Lord will raise up some educated people to start the work of God in China. And it was mainly through their prayer that the students in Trinity College began to receive help from her. And Brother Watchman Nee was the one who was most helped, because she was a disciplinarian. And when people went to her, they were dealt with. And people could not bear it. And thank God for our brother that she was able to be under such discipline for a long time. He told us himself how he sometimes suffered from his fellow workers, and he felt he was right. So he went to see Miss Barber, hoping that Miss Barber will stand with her. And Miss Barber always tell her, your brother is older than you are. Obey the older one. And she said she was so disappointed, but by the grace of God, she learned a lesson. So when you trace back what God did in China in the 1920s, it really come to the basic reason for that revival is through the travailing prayer of Miss Barber and her niece. So in the early 20s, God began to save a group of students in the Trinity College. All the best students and the worst students of every class got saved. And then in 1922, they tried to hold a public meeting for the first time. And they invited a sister from Nanking to come to that revival meeting. And that sister was Miss Ruth Lee, because she was at that time the editor of the famous Christian magazine. And her story was a story by herself, because she was a most educated woman. But she was an atheist. She was against Christianity. And the Lord wonderfully saved her. So they invited